Alright guys, so we are going to continue with our translations, or transformations. Last time we covered translations, today we are covering reflections. So, when we reflect, we are flipping the figure, the polygon, or the line, or whatever it is, over whatever line it tells us to reflect. So when we're reflecting over the x-axis is right here. And one way to look at this is just to look and see that point A is 2 above, since our boxes go by 2, or 1 box above the x-axis. So if we want it to reflect over, it would be 2 below, and we would call that A prime. Point B is 5 above, or 2.5 boxes, so we would flip it to 1, 2.5 boxes, 5 below, and that's B prime. So A prime is now at 2, -2. B prime is now at 4, -5. Based on those patterns, if you look at the original points, I'm sure you can guess where C prime is going to end up. If it's flipping below, it should be at 6, -3. So we can draw in our dashed lines here. Very similarly, if we flip over the y-axis, we reflect over the y-axis. The y-axis is the vertical here. So D is 1 away, it's 1 to the right. So we're going to move it 1 box to the left and call that D prime. So D prime is at -2, 1. E prime is 2 boxes away. Since we're counting by 2s, it's 4 over, so we're going to move 2 boxes in the opposite direction of that line. F prime is 5 away, or 2.5 boxes, so we'll move over 2.5 boxes. And then G prime is 1 away, or half a box away, so we'll call that G prime. I'll connect those. And I'm going to write in those points. So E prime is now at -4, 1. F prime is at -1, -2. And G prime is at -5, -2. Okay, we can also flip over y equals x and y equals the opposite of x. So you may recall from Algebra 1 that y equals x is a line where y and x are equal to each other. It has a slope of 1, it goes through 0, but here's our point 1, here's our point 2, here's our point 3, -1, -1. All of those points are the same, so where y is equal to x, that's where that line is. So now you have to look at it a little differently. If we're flipping over this line, we're flipping over perpendicular to this line. So since we're that triangle shape, that half box away, I would be right here. J is 1 whole diagonal box away, and then a half a diagonal. So half a diagonal and 1 whole box. Here's J prime. H is 1, 2, 3 boxes away. So 1, 2, 3 boxes would be H prime. So now these points, H prime is sitting at 3, -3. I prime is sitting at 2, 1. Hopefully you're noticing the pattern of what's happening here. j prime is sitting at 1, -2. So look from those original points to those new points. All right, y equals the opposite of x. So that's a line with a slope of -1. It's going through 0, and it's any points where x and y are opposites. So there's your line, y equals the opposite of x. So we're flipping over that line. So if we start at point U at -2, 1, we're half a box away from the line, so we're going to move half a box away. So there's u prime. So u prime now is at -1, 2. V prime, if we're here, we need to count. So 1.5 boxes away, here's V prime. And then W prime is 1.5 boxes away, so we need this distance. And there's our new triangle. So V prime ended up at 1, 2, 3, -4, +1. Hopefully you're seeing the pattern there as well. W prime is at -2, -1. Okay, so let's write out some of these rules that we may have noticed. So when we reflected in the x-axis, let's go back here. We went from a point, let's look at B, 4, 5 to 4, -5. So what I noticed for A, B, and C is that x stayed the same, but the y became the opposite. So x stays the same, but I need the opposite of y. If y was already negative, it turns positive. When we reflect in the y-axis, I notice with E, it was 4, 1. E prime is -4, 1. So y stayed the same, but x became the opposite. So y stayed the same, x became the opposite. These rules are important for you to know. All right, for y equals x, if my point I was at 1, 2, I prime was at 2, 1. So it looks like with H, I, and J, they just switched places. They weren't opposites, we just switched their places. So y, x. And then for reflecting over y equals the opposite of x, it looks like we had, let's look at W, which is 1, 2, and then W prime was -2, -1. So it looks like they switched places and they both became the opposite. So the opposite of y, the opposite of x. That's our rules there. We talked about this yesterday, or in our last lesson, and isometry is a transformation that preserves length and angle measure. So a reflection is also an isometry. The size and shape doesn't change when you flip it over that line. All right, we'll spend some more time discussing this in class. If you have any questions, feel free to come in and see me. I'll see you in class.